当主管的你，想要知道如何同时管理在不同国家的团队吗？这次邀请到了 Lenny， 也是2010年美国总统志工服务奖的得主，来跟我们聊聊他是如何将跨文化管理跟沟通结合，成功的创立多国的团队。Hello， 欢迎来到 Executive Plus 主管双语沟通力的 Podcast。我们希望带给大家最实用的沟通工具，包括了成功人士对全球市场的分享、职场英语的技能、跨文化沟通技巧与其他能帮助您成为出色领导者的工具。Hi, I'm Sherry, founder of Executive Plus. As a language trainer and certified coach, I've trained hundreds of managers from Fortune 500 companies such as Dior, Google, Deloitte, and Yahoo.And
I'm Nick, Director of Communication Strategy at Presentality.I've helped startups raise millions of US dollars in funding and train the executives of publicly listed companies to present on the global stage.
Welcome to the Executive Plus podcast,
where you can take your communication and language skills from good to great. Hey everybody, and welcome back to an Executive Plus podcast. Today, we're going to interview a really special guest, a partner at my company, a great mentor, a very experienced person, and all-around wonderful guy to have, Lenny. Now, Lenny's background is somewhat complicated, but his level of professionalism is beyond most of the people that we've worked with and talked to. So I'm going to let him introduce himself just a little bit so you can get a sense of what he's been doing internationally for most of his career.
Hi everyone, this is Lenny Chen. First of all, I want to thank Sherry and Nick for having me on this session. I was born and grew up in Taiwan and did not go to the United States until I was 26.I have lived in the US for 31 years and have been working as a management consultant in healthcare industry in both domestic US and international settings. My area of expertise is advising healthcare clients such as hospitals, insurance companies, pharmaceuticals, and governments to leverage the latest information technology to improve patient care delivery and their operations. I often work in the intersections of clinical care operation, research, and technology, which including the last 14 years at IBM. I was one of the founding members of IBM's Watson Health Group, where our team helped healthcare organizations around the globe to leverage artificial intelligence to deliver better patient care.
所以 Lenny， 如果你能够帮我们的听众稍微就是加深大家印象，或稍微翻译一下，就是您等于说是在美国的 healthcare 或者是在医学部分，这个是您的专长，对不对？
对，没有错。
你长期的时间实在是跟不同国家跟不同的文化都有非常 close 的一些工作的关系。
是的。
你特别在哪一个文化或哪一个国家you especially have a lot of experience in that, like which country or background do you work most closely with?
I think I work most closely with most of the continent in the world. So like North America and also, of course, Asia, including Middle East and Europe. The last experience that I have is in South America and Africa.
Wow, that covers everywhere.
Yeah, so that's almost everything. Because I was going to say, even though you've quote-unquote been in the States for the last 31 years, it's pretty fair to say you've actually been a citizen of the sky, traveling for most of at least the last decade of your career, just constantly going around the world working with your global team members. Is that a fair thing to say?
Yes, that's a very fair statement.So I normally consider myself as a global citizen when I travel.
你是搭飞机上班，不是开车上班。
没有错。我的儿子小的时候有一段时间以为我在机场工作。
Just because you're always going there, right?
Yes. The other unique skill sets that I develop is I really know how to plan the trip. So my families and friends sometimes use me as their travel agent to ask me if they want to book an international trip, what airline they should book, what are the tips and tricks when they book their travels, hotels, transportation, and so on.
Yeah, I'm sure you're someone who knows which part of what type of plane to sit in and what are the little subtleties in getting the best flight experience depending on airline and type of airplane, yeah?
Oh, absolutely. That's a must-have. Because I travel a lot, so I try to find the most efficient way to travel. And of course...
So if I were to ask you, how do you get from Terminal 1 to Terminal 3 in the quickest way?
Yes.
You'll probably know the answer.
Yeah. So I pretty much memorize all where to go and what are the shortcuts in terms of, like you said, travel between the terminals of the major connection city like Frankfurt, Beijing, Shanghai, or even Tokyo, Narita, Kansai Airport,
Wow.
Heathrow, and of course all the major cities in the US.
我们如果继续讲 travel 可能会讲非常的久 because we really miss that.
Yes.
But if we had a chance, we'd definitely invite Lenny back to talk about traveling. But let's get back to cross-cultural communication. 所以对于这种跨文化的沟通，我觉得 Lenny 应该是这种 expert. 我想请问您大概在一刚开始你必须要去到不同的区域好了，不同的国家去做这些 business 的时候，你们碰到哪一些 barriers 或者是一些 challenges？
如果我要去，比如说我要去中东出差好了，那或者是去欧洲出差好了，其实很多人觉得中东大概就是差不多，大部分都是相同的族群。那欧洲我们很多人也会觉得说欧洲的人大概也都差不多。其实很多人都没有去注意到说，其实每一个国家他们的语言啊，他们的一些文化其实都有一些蛮大的差异的。像欧盟里头就有大概27个国家，中东加起来有10几个国家。所以每次我要出差以前，我会看一下，就是说做一下一些 research，就是说看看当地的人做事的方式，他们的文化的背景，还有最主要的就是说他们的沟通方式非常的重要。那有些时候如果说不知道这些事情的时候，有些时候你去的时候沟通就会有一些问题。因为以我们的工作，以做顾问的工作的话，这个第一印象非常的重要你如果说侵犯到他们的一些文化上面的礼仪的话，那有些时候再来的沟通就会比较困难一点。就是比如说我大概11年前开始去沙烏地阿拉伯的时候，我去之前我就知道，就是说他们那边的因为宗教上的一些规定，所以有些地方，尤其是比如说你遇到你的客户对方是女性的时候，你第一当然不能把手伸出来要握手，而且你也不能直视她太久所以这些有一些地方其实都要非常的注意。那比较你刚刚问到的是说比较 barriers 的话，我想第一个大概就是最重要就是语言上面的 barrier。虽然我们都是用英文上面来沟通，但是有一些用字遣词还是有一些会不一样的地方。所以通常我在去之前，我会跟我当地的同事先有一个 conference call，就是说问一下，就是说如果我去的话，跟客户要沟通的时候哪些地方要注意，比如说有特别的名词我需要去避免的这些都非常的重要。那另外一个我觉得，因为我们的工作都会有时效性所谓的时效性就是说，因为我们一个合约拿下来比如说一个3个礼拜的合约要做一个顾问的咨询的话，那通常我们每一个礼拜都有所谓的 milestone 要做什么，所以我们的时间安排上非常的重要。就是说你一旦落地以后，你要把你的时间所谓的 maximize， it's very important to be efficient. Get the result that you want out of the visit. So the time management is really important. 非常的重要，因为你需要 coordinate meetings with the client, with our local teams. 所以这些 communication 这些 organizations is really important to us. 而且甚至于我们会规划的非常详细的，就是说每一个 meeting 的 agenda 是什么 What are the things we want to get out of it? So these are really critical to us.
And this was even a layer because we talked a lot about you were traveling, but while you're doing this, you're actually managing a remote team of around 50 people, and you're coordinating other team members to come in and do these different meetings depending on where you are, right? So you're actually trying to also keep multiple people on this very strict schedule.
Yeah, exactly. So I typically work with 4 groups of people to make things work, right? First of all, the client, and also our local team that resides in the country that will be working with us. And also my own team that get assigned to work on this project with me, and also the team that I'm managing personally. So for instance, I manage this 50 or so people with my other colleague. We co-led the team at that time, but I also have my own direct reports. So in terms of to juggle and to manage all the schedules, the communications, and the work among these 4 people are really critical. However, on the clients, I would rely heavily on the local team to do a lot of the coordinations.
Like you said, it's like that efficiency, that ability to communicate quickly, but also to make sure you're still navigating and respecting cultures and language or certain habits of that region. I'd also be curious if you experience, like, as you're following these time zones, did you find that the way that you have to either run your meetings or have discussions kind of adjusted throughout with the day, depending on which country you're talking to or which team members you're talking to?
Oh, absolutely. So I think there are, in different geography, the way the work habit is a bit different from one or the other. So, for instance, in some parts of the world, people has a tendency to be late. No, I shouldn't say that. That's not politically correct. The way the concept of time is different from most of us.
Very flexible, right?
Yes. Nick, you choose a better phrase. They are more flexible. So for those areas, planning ahead is really critical. So let's say if you're working with your colleague in that particular geo, you have to constantly reminding them that the meeting will start at this time. Because on a call, let's say if I want to schedule a call with people in South America, it's not just me and my colleague or the client in South America. Very likely, most of the time, I would invite one other colleague from Europe because this particular colleague has area specialty that none of us can provide. So that in itself, there are 3 time zones that I have to coordinate. So that is that planning ahead and making sure that we communicate the agenda to all the parties involved in these discussions, and also what are the expected outcomes we want to get out of the meeting. So you want to make sure that you run the meeting very efficiently and get the things you want out of it.
感觉上您提了蛮多次，就是 you need to understand the agenda and also the goal, right? In every meeting, every visits that you have with your clients internationally, 你要非常精准的知道自己要从中可能半个小时或者1个小时你得到的是什么。
对，还有另外一点就是我要强调的就是说我们we have a very strict discipline. This is that we enforce within our team is that in every meeting, we make sure we document the meeting minutes. And so we develop a template that can help us capture the meeting discussion more efficiently. So that way we have a record to go back to if there's a misunderstanding or there's any miscommunication. We always have a source of truth to go back. And that's something that we enforce very, very rigorously within our team.
Yeah, because I would also say, since you're in the healthcare space, like these kind of miscommunications or back and forth, they may have a serious consequence, especially when you're implementing new infrastructure like in a hospital, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So always having, as you said, that truth that you can go back to and go, this is what has been proposed, this is what was discussed, becomes really critical, because you're not even just fighting a language barrier. You're really trying to document and navigate all these potential challenges.
Yes. And also, this also helps people to stay focused on the call, because in the beginning, we'll say, hey, this is what we are going to discuss. This is what we expected. But at the same time, we are also, we will be documenting the discussions today. And I think that I learned throughout my career as a consultant is that validations and verifications is really important, because you want to make sure people understand what you said, and also you want to understand what people said. So throughout the discussion, we'll say, hey, this is what we discussed, right? This is what we discussed. And at the end of the meeting, we will say, this is our key takeaway. This is our to-do list. This is our follow-up list. This is our next meeting. And we verify what we discussed and we summarize it, so we are all on the same page.
Do you usually designate someone to do this kind of task, or it's kind of just anyone who took the trip or anyone who attended the meeting, who they are responsible to document the meeting minutes or the trip report?
This is a very good question. So because we work with a client, we work with our own team, we also work with our colleagues, our peers too. So I'll divide these into 3 groups. So external, meaning with the clients. So usually on the team itself, we will ask someone on the team to document what we discuss. And sometimes we rotate, right? We say, hey, okay, I'll do this time, and someone else will do the other one. But if the project is big enough and we have a lot of people on the team, we typically would designate what we call meeting scriber, or we assign someone to take meeting minutes for almost every meeting. And these people tend to be more junior in terms of their career, particularly for those just out of college. I think taking minutes, and sometimes people think, wow, this is a very boring job. But I was a junior analyst before when I started out my career. And what I learned the most is actually from taking those minutes, because then I pay attention to the discussions and I have to summarize. I have to try to capture everything. And after the meeting, I have to follow up with attendees. This is what I captured. Does this make sense to you? Did I do it correctly? So a lot of time people would think taking minutes is quite boring. Yes, it sounds boring, but what I learned is that I learned a lot from just taking the minutes, because it make you think and make you pay attention. If it's internal, we will just take turns saying, hey, Nick, can you do it this time? And I'll do it next time. And Sherry, you do the following time. And within our team is very special. I don't think many people didn't do it this way. Is that we have we call it first chair and second chair. I forgot the phrase we use. But for instance, we would assign particularly 2 person on our team to a particular client. So each client, there are 2 of us supporting this client, the first chair and the second chair. And so if the first chair is facilitating the meeting, it's really hard for the first chair to take the notes. So the second chair would take the meeting notes. Does that make sense? And so, and vice versa. If first chair is on vacation, then the second chair know what to do next. So there's always a coverage. So there's no discontinuation of supporting a client. So we want to make sure everything is covered.
So really, from a client's perspective, there's no downtime. They always have a contact point. They always have someone they can reach, and they never feel that they're just kind of floating out there waiting for someone to jump in, right?
Yeah, and because this is also involving the vacation planning, right? So our team has a spreadsheet where we track where we are on a weekly basis, not on a daily basis, but a weekly basis. So we make it a mandatory for everybody to update the team schedule on a weekly basis, so we know where people are. And you also know when to plan your vacation to make sure that your clients, there's always a coverage.
Okay. It seems like we really create a system that allows them to have this like seamless transition.
Yes. And also, so this is like the team level, but at the team management level, we also divide and conquer. So my other colleague, she's also the head of our team. I'm responsible for Asia Pacific. So like I say, from Japan all the way down to Southeast Asia. And my other colleague, she is responsible for the rest of the world. So that way,
wow.
At a management level, we also cover.
I mean, I really think it's valuable to talk about like this rigorous structure, how you're talking about scheduling and just having systems in place. But I actually want to jump back really quick because there was something you said earlier that really caught me. And I like the idea of talking about when it came to taking meeting minutes. For you really saw that as a great opportunity for growth because it sounds like, it's getting the coffee, low level work, but the reality is that's a time that you could really capture other people's mindset and pay attention to how other people are operating. And so my follow-up question to that is just, you've talked to me about before, like how much work you guys put into onboarding new team members and the amount of time and thought you put into that process. And I would be curious, like, in addition to this, if someone's more junior and they join the team, then they can learn from taking notes. But were there any other things you guys did during onboarding or any other things that people who just joined your global team would kind of go through so that they could really get used to the structure and the pace of how your team worked?
Yes, that's a good question. So we actually spend a lot of energy and effort to develop what he said is, we call it onboarding program, because we were recruiting people from all over the world and also from various backgrounds. So for instance, the team that we have been referring to is we have 50 or so people, and most of the people on the team are clinicians. So clinicians meaning they were taking care of patients before, because we were implementing a artificial intelligence solution for healthcare. So we need clinicians to work on our team to be able to help us implement these solutions across the globe. So these clinicians ranging from oncologists, nurses, and even molecular biologists. And there are people that have never worked for a corporation before. They were truly practicing oncologists or nurses before they join our team. So bringing these people on board is quite challenging. So we developed a program to help them ease into the corporations or the business world. So the program we ran in the past is a week-long program where we gather the newcomers. And so the new hires or the newcomers, as you can imagine, let's say we onboard 20 people in Bangkok. So we have to fly people from all over the world to Bangkok because we have to find a place for us together. That including the clinicians that I said, but also a junior analyst who just joined us right out of college, or they have been in professional world for just 1 or 2 years. So there's a very diverse backgrounds in participating in the onboarding. So the first thing is what we do is to introduce them, what the company is, what are the expectations of them, what is our department does, what is our missions, what is our guiding principles as a team, what are how we work as a team. So, and also we talk about, like in this case, in this session, we talk a lot about communications, right? So communication, we'll spend a lot of time talking about different types of communication, external communications, internal communications, and also different modes of communication with like digital communications like email, instant messages, and also we call it like digital presence is really important because we reside globally in a different parts of the world. How is the best way for any one of us to reach out to you? And you also need to let people know who you are. So the digital presence could be, we ask everybody to create a profile. So it's a template where you fill out your expertise, your areas of interest and so on, mostly around professional experiences. So we know in terms of what you can do. So that's pretty much the beginning of the onboarding program. And then we will move into how can you help them ease into the corporate world. So for instance, for the oncologist who just joined us, this is a totally different world. Their quote unquote customer in the past are patients. But in our team, the customers actually are our clients. And the customer could be internal customers, like your peers, your colleagues, or even your managers. What are the things you have to pay attention to in a corporate world? So it's not that different if you think about it from their previous life. But there's also a very different areas in terms of working in a multi-international corporations, right? Like we have discussed earlier in terms of the differences in cultures and the way people communicate and so on. The other thing we also want to help them get on board quickly is what we just talked about. You will be traveling, right? So what are the things you need to do? Right. So we will go through what we call the technology enablement. That's a very important part of the onboarding part. Is like, let's take physician as an example, because they are very unique group of colleagues that I work with. In the past, they have what we call the physician extenders that help them. So they will have nurses, they have their nurse practitioner, physician assistants, office managers to help them organize their day. But in our world, they have to manage a lot of these things themselves. So even how to get on the email, how to get on the instant message that we use within the corporations, how are they going to book their flight? Okay, so we have a contract with American Express. They offer a website for us to book our trip, but it's not just booking a trip, right? We have to book our trip according to the company rules. There are hotels that we don't stay. There are hotels that contract with us, so we got a better rate. What are the things you don't do in any parts of the geography? So for instance, if you got assignment in a war zone area or where there are some domestic imbalance, there are things you cannot do when you travel into that part of the world. So for instance, in a area where there could be some domestic imbalance, then we are not allowed to rent a car. So all of these, and how can you get a work visa? Let's say if you got assignment, you based in US, but you got assignment in China, and you have to get your visa very quickly. And what are the way to get your visa quickly? So that's the things we have to bring them on board. And this require a lot of time for them to get used to. But we provide tools to help them ease into their role. And the other thing is one of the critical part of the onboarding is to talk about what are the solutions we are implementing at the client sites. So they have to be educated on how this solution is developed and how they can present the solution to the client more efficiently. And also we'll spend a lot of time working on how do you work with the client. There are things that you have to be aware of. What are the subtleties of when you're managing a client, what you can say, what you cannot say. So these are the things that we pay attention to very, very, very vigorously.
这样让我想起我以前在美国参加了很多个 orientation 就是新到进一个公司，我发现天哪，这个经验完全不一样。You know, I remember I just kind of thrown into orientation for like a day or two, and then that's it. You go back to your desk and you figure it out what you have to do. There's no like 没有那么 intricate system where it helps you to get into the corporate world. It helps you to transition. Also, you know, 有人要放假, you know, you have to take over their work. How do you do that? Like, usually I have to figure it out myself. And I felt pretty lost for many, many times. So I'm so impressed with what you just said, because I think it's really going to help a lot of people in Taiwan or in Asia, and they want to launch teams and product and business overseas, and how they can manage the different team globally. I think it's really going to help them.
And the other thing I forgot to mention, you know, onboarding program, or the orientation, Sherry, as you called it just now, it's a continuations of their onboarding process, because once they got assigned to a project, you know, the orientation or the onboarding didn't just stop there. It's a continuations of their onboarding. So for instance, we create a mentorship program. So meaning within our team, you have your direct report manager. You have your peers where you can ask questions. You can ask your direct report, your HR manager within the team. And so your HR manager or your direct report will do your performance review. But we also assign a mentor to you. So you have 3 people to go to. So the mentor doesn't manage you directly, but the mentor would help you in terms of any questions you have. There's no hidden agenda. This mentor is here to help you answer any question you have. One of the things that mentor can help a lot is sharing their own experiences, but also important thing is help you with your career development from their own experience. So for instance, you know, we all wanted to be promoted, but there's a different sets of criteria in order for you to be promoted. What are the things you need to do, right? So the mentor is a good person for you to ask these questions. So each one of us has a mentor assigned. So we try to create a team that has a culture of support and caring, but most important things, we emphasize a lot on transparency. Because in a corporate world, people are anxious to know what's going on. What's going on with this client? The company just make this new announcements. Is this going to impact me? So people are constantly worrying about where they are going. So I think my colleague and I make it really clear. Our number one guiding principle within the team is transparency. There's no hidden agenda within the team. Everybody can speak their mind so that you don't create fear within the team. So openness is what we thrive for within our team.
Yeah, I mean, this also kind of embodies a theme that I've been sensing throughout our conversation, which is a lot of people may look at remote teams as being much looser, more freedom as far as like how you operate. But one thing that I've really gotten from your conversations is for companies or people who are looking at this transition to remote teams, it's more about if you have that really strong underlying structure, and you actually even have to be more structured to give that freedom of being able to work globally or to work from home. But not just the structure as far as like how you schedule out your day, how you do certain work, but what you were just sharing with us, that idea that the people's connection, like how do you still ensure people feel connected, whether they have a mentor to help guide them, whether they actually feel connected to their team members, even though they may not see them very often. But it's like, how do you form that really strong connection? A lot of it just came from having these certain things in place where it's like you always, if you need answers, you can find them. If you need a person to talk to, you can find them. And the end result of sort of that rigid structure is you get to have that openness. People feel included, and people also feel they have the ability to speak their mind or really contribute towards the team.
Yes. So we talk about the structure of our team and mentorship program, but we also emphasize with our managers. So we have a few managers within the team that manage their own team within our big team. So we make sure, for instance, for those newcomers or the new hires, the manager stay with them very closely for the first 90 days. So we take me example. I personally manage the Greater China team. So once they join after onboarding program, within a week, I will schedule a meeting with them as a team. So I ask them what's going on, anything I can help you. And then I'll formally schedule, let's say, post 30 day from their hiring date, post 30 day, we call it post 30 day meeting. And this will be one-on-one meetings. So I'll schedule meeting with each individual of them. And then this is just me and one of them. And we walked over what are the things he or she has accomplished, what are the things she or he can wanna to say to me, or what are the things they like to do next. And then post 60 days, post 90 days. So these are three major milestones that we enforce with our managers as well. And the other thing I wanted to point out is that also make sure that you leverage the technology tools you have at hand to manage the team more efficiently. So there are different tools, right? In intranets, instant messages, all these tools that you can use right away to help them make their days easier. So for instance, there are little tips like, oh, if I want to capture a screenshot, what are the tools that I can use? And so we list a list of tools that they can do these functions. And so they feel like they are always something there to help them.
我觉得我们今天的 conversation 对我来讲是一个蛮 unexpected 因为我发现 Lenny 你是站在一个领导者的角度去看 communication， 所以你的 communication 不只是简单的说我跟人的沟通，而是跟系统你要怎么样把这个系统 put a system in place， 还有怎么样对 internal 或者 external 或对客户，或者是要怎么样让每一个细节或者是每一个转接非常很顺利的 transition， 你看的方向是非常不一样的。 So it's definitely a surprise for me and very unexpected, but I think我们的听众，如果你真的是想要到国际的市场，尤其是你要去 manage 一个 global team， 我觉得今天 Lenny 给大家的这些 tips and tricks 或者这些 knowledge, it's absolutely incredible.
Thank you. I'm glad I can share my own personal experience.
No, I think that especially in the current age when everyone has been really going online or taking this working remotely situation more seriously. And now in Taiwan, we're definitely facing that situation a little later than the rest of the world. But these are great insights into how people can really think about what does it look like to have a functioning global team, both, cross-culturally, even in your case, a lot of cross-professionally where you're moving clinicians into corporate jobs. But it's like, how do you transition everyone smoothly? And then how do you create an underlying structure? I think you are definitely the perfect person to share your experience.
I'm very happy to share my own experience. And I think my advice for people who are going to embrace a job like I had before is that I think throughout the time, you will develop skills to embrace uncertainty and ambiguities. And one thing that is really hard on my own experiences is that how can you motivate a team at their top performance that across the globe in different time zones with different cultures? That's always a constant challenge for me when I was in that role. To be honest, I'm still learning, but I think what I advise to people is that embrace the challenge, embrace the uncertainty, and embrace the ambiguity.
So instead of seeing those as challenges, how would you look at them?
I would look at them as my learning opportunities. And by all means, I'm not saying that it's easy. It's quite challenging, particularly because you think about it, if you're working remotely just by yourself, even, there's nobody except your family members. If you're single, just you, or maybe you're a pet. And you don't know, when there's uncertainty and ambiguity, people get nervous, right? Because I don't know what to do next. And so that's why we try to develop a system that people feel like they are supported. It's only a phone call away or email away or just instant message away. So you can reach anybody in the team. Obviously, you don't want to bother other people when they are sleeping, right? But good thing about working in a global team is that time differences, right? So you can always call somebody the time zone is not that far off.
Well, it's just like having the capability. It's not even that you need to do it, but just like feeling safe in that there's someone you can ask, there's someone you can talk to, there's someone you can share what's going on with.
And sometimes we will schedule some we call it a casual call. So a small group of us, we will gather together. Not a set of meeting that we will hold regularly. It's like a small group of people that we will schedule a call just to talk about life, talk about work, and talk about different things. And obviously, we'll talk about work for sure. And that's when that's where we share our experiences. We have a name for this type of call. We call it group therapy.
Group therapy. Ooh, I like that.
That's very nice.
Yeah,
I was going to say happy hour.
Yeah, it's a happy hour / group therapy because you got frustrated from work, right? You want to create a place where they feel safe and they can channel their frustrations among the people they feel comfortable with. So that we do on a monthly basis. And it's not formal meetings, just some of us will gather together. And that's really important. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely both for your own mental sanity, but also I think team building wise, people kind of feel everyone's on the same boat.
Yeah, and this type of meeting could be just two, right? It could be just me and one of my colleagues. And typically we'll send an instant message to my colleagues, say, hey, I need a group therapy. I have some
coaching
verbal
session.
I have some verbal diarrhea I need to.
Someone's got to hear.
Yeah. And that helps because when you alone and you feel anxious, you get so frustrated and you can immediately find someone to talk to. And so that's critical. So you don't get bogged down on those frustrations or those challenges.
Yeah, no, I love it. And I think that's a kind of a perfect last point to sort of wrap up. I think we've seen what the rigid structure looks like, but I mean, definitely when we get to the benefits of how you can create camaraderie, how people will still feel connected in this remote situation. I like that a lot.
Yeah, it seems like the support system becomes crucial. I mean, especially during the pandemic, last year, this year, everyone needs that. So I think that's good leadership right there, Lenny.
I didn't do this alone. We developed this as a team. So it's years of experiences working remotely because I've been working from home since 1997.
Wow.
The ultimate at-home working encyclopedia. It's the new Lennypedia.
我觉得好像还可以再跟你聊好多集。
Yeah. Yeah, there's awesome information here that I think our listeners can benefit from. So I would say before we wrap up, is there any like last minute thing you want to share or plug or any advice you want to give?
So I think my last advice is, I think, be open, don't be afraid, and changes are hard, but changes also bring growth and opportunities. And when you get to the other side, the world actually is brighter.
Wow.
That's my advice.
Powerful advice.
Embrace it, uncertainty, ambiguity, and invite the growth.
Yes.
Well, we want to thank Lenny for sharing. As you know, I said at the very beginning, the breadth and depth of his expertise and professionalism really came through in the interview, and we really want to thank you for your time and sharing with us.
Oh, you're welcome. And thanks for having me on these sessions. I also learned a lot too.
No problem. And we hope in the future that we'll be able to pick your brain again, because I think there's so much more that you can continue sharing with us.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. More than happy to share.
Well, we hope you guys enjoyed our wonderful conversation with Lenny, and you'll join us in the future for more interviews. We'll talk to you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
如果你喜欢我们的 podcast， 欢迎来追踪我们的主管英文 Executive Plus 的 Facebook。那也可以写信到我们的信箱yourcareerplus@gmail.com。